Hi, welcome to the Carnivore Stories podcast with me, Alyssa Grubner. The carnivore way of eating completely transformed my life, and it's stories just like the ones you'll hear on this podcast that kept me going every step of the way. I hope you're ready to hear an inspirational carnivore story. I know I am, but first, let me tell you about the Meat-tastic t-shirts I have for sale on my spring store. It's a great opportunity for you to become a walking billboard if that's what you're into. And it's a great opportunity for you to support your new favorite podcast. You can find a link to the spring store in my bio on Instagram at Meat, M-E-A-T, Mrs. M-R-S, Grubs, G-R-U-B-S. I'll also put a link to the store in this video's description on YouTube. So check it out and get some carnivore swag. Welcome to episode 30 of the Carnivore Stories podcast. Today I'm joined by Cherish Thompson. She helps women over 35 start and stick with carnivore for the long haul. And you can find Cherish on Instagram at Cherishing Your Health. How perfect.
It matches, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk with you. I've been looking forward to this.
All right. Well, will you start off with sharing what brought you to carnivore and when was that?
Okay. So I've been carnivore now for a year and a half. Was keto before that. A lot of people find their way to carnivore via keto, and I am no exception to that rule. And well, let's see, how much time you got? it's kind of a
take as much time. Yes, take as much time as you need.
Okay. All right. So it's a little bit of a long story, but I'll try to be succinct. So I found keto through the documentary Fat, a documentary by Vinnie Tortorich, right? And at the time, my husband was injured, and I was telling him about this anti-inflammatory diet, and he was experiencing a lot of pain due to inflammation. And he said, if I try it, will you do it with me? And I said, well, yeah, of course. I've been dying for this guy to do something, because my husband's also type 2 diabetic and has been for a couple decades. So as long as I've known him. And so I was thrilled. Well, we did. And I mean, immediately the guy started seeing, his blood sugars come down and all kinds of things just miraculously started happening. And he started having this great healing journey. And so I couldn't stop talking about it to everybody that would in earshot. And so then I decided to start studying to become a coach. And in the interim, I had an injury myself. I broke my ankle and was able to, shed some pounds just sitting there in a cast just by eating a low carb diet. It was really phenomenal. Right. So I couldn't shut up. And so I'm studying to become a coach. And my husband's now down to one medication on his diabetic medications. And, I was looking always for more information. Once you get excited about this lifestyle, you kind of delve into it. A lot of people will watch a ton of the YouTube videos. And I found all the major doctors that support this way of eating, and just absorbed as much as I could. And so then I stumbled upon the Steak and Butter Gang Challenge and decided to give it a try, and realized that my family really doesn't like vegetables anyway. So why am I killing myself making all these vegetables that I have to literally count out so that I don't go over my carb macro? Why am I doing that when we could just eat meat, cheese, and butter and be happy? And so that's kind of how it started. And I joined the 30-day Steak and Butter Gang Challenge, and I haven't left since. So that was July 2021. So that's when I became carnivore, and I've systematically reduced everything that was non-carnivore, with the exception of occasional cocktail on very special occasions. Like I just celebrated a birthday, so I had a cocktail on my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But other than that, other than occasion, I mean, I got rid of everything, including coffee. So.
Awesome. Just out of curiosity, what is your go-to cocktail if you're going to have one on Carnivore?
I have two. So if it's what I really want, I will do like a hard seltzer, but I'll dilute it with regular sparkling water. Okay, so like a White Claw or something like that. And then I dilute it with water, sparkling water. Or I really sometimes like a nice red wine. And then if I'm really being good, though, if I'm being good, like I'm not being a super naughty carnivore, I'll get, like a shot and a half of vodka. And then I'll take sparkling water and I'll slowly pour that into the sparkling water. But that's not my favorite. My favorite is the other two.
Okay. Do you feel like alcohol hits you harder on Carnivore or when you were doing keto?
Oh, absolutely. I'll never forget. Okay, so my friend and I used to play this drinking game. Did you ever play a drinking game where somebody says a word and then you have to drink?
No, but I've seen people play it.
Okay. So a friend of mine and I, we used to play this game with like 90 Day Fiance. We would watch the show together. We'd pick some words out of it. And then if the character said that word, then we would drink.
Okay.
And I never forget the first time I played it after going keto. Because again, White Claw only has like 2-3 carbs to it, right? So you literally could have like 5 of those and not go over your carb macro, right? I found out real quick on keto that is absolutely not a good idea. It is not possible. And it's not good to drink quickly when you have no carbs in your body or very low carbs in your body. It does hit you like a ton of bricks. So good lesson to learn. But I rarely drink like once a year now. It's really not anything that I crave anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. The only time I will drink is when I go to the beach. So that's once a year, and I go to the beach, I'll have a drink, and it's seltzer water with gin and maybe some lime juice if I'm feeling fancy. But coming to Carnivore, I've noticed that my desire to drink is way decreased. Like it's not something I think about or something I'm like, oh, I wish I wasn't carnivore so I could drink all the time. It's just, it's something I do on vacation just cause I'm on vacation, I guess.
You're on vacation just because you want to relax, just because you want to do it, right? It's not a need, it's not a necessity. I used to, before I went keto, I used to drink at least every weekend, and sometimes more than that, just for stress relief, simple stress relief. And I found that because carnivore specifically helps reduce, anxiety and stress, that I just don't desire it or need it anymore. And I can go to a social event and not necessarily have to have it. Like it's an intentional decision for me. And not everybody's like that. But that's where I'm at in my journey.
Yeah. Okay. So how about when you went keto or carnivore, did you have any adaptation, any issues adapting, like keto flu or issues digesting more fat, more protein?
Yes, initially. And I did not know about the adaptations. Like I said, I watched the documentary. The documentary doesn't talk specifically about adaptation issues or any kind of adjustment issues that you might have. I learned that after we went 100% full in, like straight into keto. Like we did not like pedal to the metal kind of keto. And so, yeah, initially I had some, dizziness and lightheadedness and just kind of feeling bit. But, that quickly resolved itself because of just getting all that, that sodium, excess processed foods out of your body. Once that was over, it was fine. When I transitioned to carnivore, I didn't really have a whole lot of adaptation issues until, I started kind of like increasing my fats, or if I, did a lot of fasting and then did a huge refueling, then sometimes I would have, the typical loose stools, but that's something that just kind of goes along with it sometimes when you eat high fat until you're used to it. So yeah, but I would think the keto flu was probably the rougher of the two.
Yeah. And as a carnivore coach, is that something that you really emphasize, like the adaptation phase for people just starting out, like what to expect?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you have to kind of help people through because they're concerned. We always talk about the things that nobody else wants to talk about. We talk about, bowel movements. We talk about urine color. We talk about all the bodily functions, for women, monthly cycle or lack thereof. So it's just one of those things. It's like, okay, well, you might do this or you might feel that. I mean, a lot of people on carnivore, especially if they only eat like one meal a day, sometimes don't go as often, and that's a concern for a lot of people. Like they get scared that they're not going every day, and it's like, no, you're fine. Your body's just using up what you put in it, and that's fine. So it's just one of those things. Yeah, you definitely want to warn people, especially if they're coming straight from a standard American diet. Some folks need to go all in right away, especially if they have some kind of autoimmune condition or something for healing. They definitely need it right away. They want it right away. I get that. I do think that for a lot of people, it's better to, kind of take it one step at a time, start by eliminating certain things, and then, kind of move into all in carnivore. When I joined the challenge, I was still drinking tea. I was still having sweeteners. My initial goals when I first became carnivore was to get rid of nut butters and to get better sleep. Took me a while to get to the better sleep part, but I was able to kick the nut butter habit within the first 30 days, thanks to the support of my lovely group that I'm part of and the tricks that they taught me. And so, yeah, and from there, it was just like, okay, well, I think I'm going to get rid of the tea. And then I think I'm going to just do coffee with butter instead of sweetener. And then it was like, okay, and now I'm going to get rid of these electrolyte drinks that have sweetener in them. Okay. And then now I'm going to and this was like over months. So, the last thing for me to go was coffee. And that took me 10 months into my carnivore journey to finally let that go.
Yeah, that's a hard one for a lot of people, the coffee.
It is.
So you mentioned that you wanted better sleep, and that's something that eventually came to you through carnivore?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that after like adding in more fats, or did you do anything differently, or was it just a matter of just, going through the process?
So we have a process in our group called priming, which is eating carnivore till comfortably stuffed, three meals a day, and sometimes 3 meals plus snacks. So if you're like me, which is like most folks, that you've pretty much undereaten or overeaten your whole life, you never really were in between. It's a matter of getting your body renourished because you have been undernourished for so long. And so by doing that, and it was a surprise, I wasn't expecting it. I thought that this is how women were supposed to be, because once you start having babies, you're used to getting up in the middle of the night, right? And so this is just your life now. You get up at 2:30 in the morning to go to the bathroom because you're used to getting up at that hour to feed baby, right? So then it turns into, oh, now I got to go to the bathroom because I've had babies and my bladder's a little looser than what it was. I just thought this was a normal process of getting old. And lo and behold, once I renourished myself, it went away. And I was like, okay, I can sleep for 6 solid hours now without waking up, and a good, deep, restful sleep. Like,
wow,
to be able to wake up when, I could hear my husband coming in from work or leaving for work, and I would wake up and I would have a hard time going back to sleep. Now that rarely happens. It's like I'm rest. It's not just a longer sleep, but it's a deeper sleep as well. So more restful. So on average, about 6 hours a night. And that seems to be working for me just fine.
Awesome. And then a year and a half into carnivore now, what do you typically eat in a day?
Okay, so I'm really boring. So for example, today I had taken my steak, I split it into 2 meals, and it was a New York strip. So I alternate my steaks between New York strips and ribeyes, usually. Occasionally I'll have something fancy, like a Delmonico or like a cowboy steak or cowgirl steak, something that's cut a little different. I like T-bones too, but they for some reason, depends on where they're from, sometimes that can be just a little bit too much for me. So I have to cut them, cut the 2 steaks apart anyway. But that right now is typically it's beef. And yesterday, let's see, I did some salmon. So occasionally I'll do some fish, some shrimp occasionally. And ever since I recovered from the virus that shall not be named, because I had to probably eat so much of them during that time, I rarely touch eggs these days. I don't know what it is. I used to crave them all the time and want to eat them every day. And now I just don't. I'll put an egg yolk in the fatty lattes that I make. And I can shoot you that recipe if you'd like. It's what I use in place of coffee. So, and it's
Awesome.
quite good. So other than the egg yolk in that, I haven't touched an egg in a while, but I used to love them. And I think tomorrow, either tonight after we're done here, I'm going to steam some crab legs for me and my daughter.
Oh, yummy. Oh, that sounds so good. Crab legs. I have not had crab legs in a while, and I haven't really thought about them until you said crab legs. And I just got like this flash of like dipping it in butter. And I was like, oh, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
So you do 2 meals a day typically?
Typically, yeah.
Okay. Do you do any intermittent fastings, or do you have your first meal first thing in the morning? Are you waiting a while?
It varies from day to day. Just depends on my day, on my schedule, on my hunger level. I kind of let my body tell me what to do. So usually I wait until, on a typical day, I'll wait until about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock before I have my first meal. And, then I try to, just get it in before bedtime, which is around 9. So usually I try to have my second meal somewhere between 4 and 6, but it's not always the same. I'm a busy mom. I've got very active children. So sometimes I have to be very able to pivot as far, I have also done some extended fasting in the past. Right now, I'm not currently doing that. I'm actually focusing on using the animal fats to control my cortisol right now. That's kind of where my N=1 experiment is right now. That's what I'm playing with. So, yeah, so I'm just eating at this point.
Yes. Yeah. So I actually saw you doing, it was like a talk about the higher fat carnivore for women, and about how butter is so good for the cortisol and stress.
Mm-hmm.
And after this was like a month ago, and before then I was always like, okay, carnivore, I'm going to prioritize protein, whatever fat comes along with it, I'm going to eat that and maybe have a little bit of butter. But after that, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try having at least a stick of butter a day
Mm-hmm.
and see how that goes. And I was really scared because in the past, like when I first started carnivore, that amount of fat would have destroyed me. I would have been, on the toilet all day.
Mm-hmm.
But this time around, it's been totally different. Now I am using HCL because without it, I will get nauseous with that much butter.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been able to decrease the amount of HCL over the last month. So I'm definitely digesting the fat a lot better. And I feel really great. Like after a really hard workout, sometimes I can feel kind of like, tense and like stressed out just from that amount of heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll pop a couple tablespoons of butter and I'm feeling like, so soothed. Like my mom just gave me a big hug or something.
It's oil for the machine, right? So that's what
Yeah.
butter does. Yeah, it is. It's a great tool for when you're feeling anxious or when you need energy. I love it. Yeah. So myself, I'm also, trying to make sure that I get in a significant amount of butter a day, at least a stick every day, or the equal to a stick of butter by either the butter itself or animal fats. It's mostly butter though.
Okay.
Yeah. I love it.
Do you do any other dairy or any organs?
So I will fluctuate, like every couple months or so, I'll go completely. I will avoid cheese. I got rid of heavy whipping cream a long time ago. It's too addictive for me. And plus it makes my joints hurt. Like the pasteurized dairy just doesn't feel well for me. So I got rid of the heavy whipping cream last year, and I will do cheese. So like right now, because it's my birthday month, I'm allowing myself to have cheese, and so we'll see what happens in December. I haven't made up my mind if I'm going to skip December or not. But yeah, so I will do cheese. I try to limit it though, because it's very addictive for me. But when in doubt, and when you're out and about and you're with other people and there's no other option, it's nice to have that just so that you can stay carnivore, be social. And, if you're picking up on others' cravings around you, it's nice to be able to use it to combat those. Right. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So carnivore in social settings, has anybody tried to make you feel bad about your crazy diet?
Absolutely. I've had people tell me, I'll see you when you have a heart attack and all that stuff. Family members have mentioned that. And I just smile, giggle, and go about my business. And if they want to know more, they can ask and I'll answer. But I've had medical professionals tell me that intermittent fasting wasn't good for me, or extended fasting wasn't good for me, or just eating this way typically is not good for you. And so I just to the contrary, this is the most anti-inflammatory diet, and what usually causes diseases, and then when you put it to them like that, they kind of like, okay. And then they kind of just, okay. And just walk away, I've gotten some pretty weird looks. So here's a good story. So my friend was having bunko party, which is a dice game for those that don't know. And she had just wall to wall garbage, like just the most awful foods, right? That I used to love going to, and drinks galore, like,
Mm-hmm.
like all the cocktails and all the spirits and, beer and wine and everything. And so here I am in this, like, just this den of, of horrible food and temptation. And I knew I was going to go into it. So I've known this person for over 20 years. So I felt perfect. And then we were at her home. So I decided I was just going to bring a ribeye with me. And if I felt tempted or if I felt hungry, I was just going to heat it up in her microwave or her oven. I was like, they all looked at me a little weird, but I didn't care because, at the end of the day, this is my body, my health. And why should you care what's on my plate? I don't care what's on your plate. You're sitting there, you got your hands in the M&Ms and you're just shoving them in your mouth and nobody's saying anything to you. So why is it weird that I just have a big steak on my plate? In fact, a few people were jealous.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, well, I just don't want to eat the breaded chicken that's being served. And I felt, like I said, because of my relationship with that person, I felt perfectly comfortable doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the benefits I've gotten from this way of eating has really given me confidence in situations like that, because I know it's crazy. It's still crazy to me sometimes, when I think about how I used to think about health and what's healthy to eat. So I know it's crazy that I'm on this all meat diet to people, but it's like, I don't care how crazy it is because I feel so amazing doing this, versus how I felt before. And I was so much closer to a heart attack as a vegan than I am now, Wow. Okay. Well, you mentioned making crab legs for you and your daughter. Are your kids carnivore also?
No.
Okay.
I really wish they were, but my kids, we started when they were both teenagers already.
Okay.
So, or at least one was a preteen, I think, at the time. Yeah. And so they've already been exposed to public school food and the vending machines at public school and their friends and their birthday parties and stuff like that. So, just trying to lead by example, trying not to lecture too much. It's very hard with my personality, when they come to me and they don't feel well, to not mention the fact that it's probably a lot to do with what they're eating. So I try to tone it down as much as possible. And when they want something to eat, the very first thing I offer them is either meat, eggs, or whatever, and because they are of a certain age, they can go out and pick up stuff now themselves. So at this point, I can just prioritize meat and animal fat and just hope that when they do have an ailment, and if they come to me and we talk about it, and hopefully that they'll just pick up on what I've learned, and perhaps maybe one day they'll get on the train with me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, even them being big kids, teenagers, they're still watching and observing. And like you said, if they ever have an ailment, that's probably going to be the first thing that pops into their mind. Like, mom was on this all meat diet for all this time, and she's always trying to tell us how healthy it was. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Right.
Finally.
Exactly. More is caught than taught, right?
Yeah.
There you go. That's how it is when you're a parent. So if you just lead by example, be a good person, try to do the right thing, your kids will follow in suit.
How about, okay, so you mentioned that you were able to achieve better sleep. You gave up the nut butters, all the artificial sweeteners, and those were goals coming to carnivore. Have there been any unexpected benefits, any very delightful side effects of this way of eating?
Oh, yeah. So libido is a huge delightful side effect of this way of eating. Again, because of my past and some things that I had to have done as a woman, that, you know, things were very irritable in the female area, you know, and it made intimacy painful. And a lot of women, I'm pretty brave about this. I never was before, but I feel like there are a lot of women out there suffering in silence. So, you know, if my story can help just one person, and I know that it has helped some folks that I've coached, you know, I'm going to keep telling it that this way of eating helps heal, you know, the dryness that you might experience at a certain point in your life. It definitely heals, you know, because it's anti-inflammatory. There's no sugar. So it definitely takes care of the candida. If you have yeast infection problems, it's definitely going to help with that, because you're not feeding it. You're not feeding that yeast any sugar, you know. So it definitely is great for female health. It's great for prostate health too. You know, male clients, you know, are experiencing, you know, better libido as well, because, you know, you're taking out all this junk that is not good for your body's systems and not natural, right? So the next thing you know, your plumbing's working better, you know. And speaking of plumbing, you know, at a certain age, again, as a mom, you know, after you've had babies, I know you're a mom, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So according to, you know, society, we're supposed to sneeze and pee all at the same time because we've had kids, or if you laugh too hard, you might piddle yourself, right? You know, there's a whole aisle of stuff in the grocery store just dedicated to adult diapers, right? Wait a minute. Like, is that really supposed to be that way? And so, you know, again, I'm just moving along in my journey, not thinking about it. And the next thing I know, the sudden urge to go to the bathroom, it's all gone. It's like it disappeared. And it's like, oh, wow, this is incredible. Like, I don't have to run to the bathroom anymore. That's amazing, you know? So, and I definitely attribute it to this way of eating, and a little fasting kind of helps tighten everything up. So, yeah, so those were two very unexpected, surprising non-scale victories, like we like to call them, that I was very happy to get. And there are other ones too. I feel like my eyesight's better. I used to have these floaters that I noticed are gone, you know, hair, skin, nails, all much better because of carnivore. Brain fog lifted, you know. Again, used to think because I'm, you know, 50 plus, right?
Yeah.
50 plus now, that, you know, in my 40s, I walk into a room, if I can't remember why, that's just normal, right? Turns out that's not normal. And that once you get rid of all the processed junk, that your brain clears and that you are able to recall things better.
Yes. Yeah. And it is so heartbreaking for me to, you know, see my relatives who are older and they are so quick to anything that happens to them. I'm like, oh, it's age. I'm old. And I'm like, you're not old. You're 50. That's not old, you know, and you know, that they'll just write it off as that. And I think what you're doing is so important to like help spread the word that, yeah, these things are common, but it's not normal. It's not something you just need to put up with because you had another birthday, you know?
I like how you put that. It's common, but not normal. I love that. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use it.
Yes, use away, please. Well, Cherish, I have one last question to ask you.
Okay.
You've given a lot of great advice during this interview, but what advice would you give to someone just starting out on this way of eating?
Don't overthink it. Keep it simple. When I, you know, first came into the group, my community, I wanted to do all the things at once, do everything at once, like jump in a whole hog and just do everything at once. And one of the very first things that it was like, okay, just pick one goal, start there, start simple, Worry about fancy later. You got a lifetime, especially when you're carnivore. Your life is probably going to be longer than you would have been on a sad diet. So you're going to have time to play around with, experimenting and doing some of the fancier, things that you hear about. Just eat meat, drink water, have some eggs, maybe have a dairy occasionally, and, enjoy life. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about joy and just getting the freedom to enjoy life and not have to worry about food and how much you're going to eat or when you're going to eat or what you're going to eat. It's a food freedom. So yeah, I would say keep it simple, worry about fancy later. Don't overthink it.
Yes, that is great advice. Well, before we go, can you let everyone know where they can find you if they wanted to work with you, if they want to be coached by Cherish?
Sure. If you are interested in coaching one-on-one with me, you can find me on Instagram at Cherishing Your Health, all spelled out. I also have a website, Cherishing Your Health, where you can email me there. And of course, you can find me in the Steak and Butter Gang as well.
Right. Okay. So I'll be sure to link your website in the show notes. Let's see.
Oh, I almost forgot. I also have a YouTube channel. Do have a YouTube channel, same name, Cherishing Your Health. So you can find me there as well.
That's it for today. Until next time, stay meaty, stay strong, and stay inspired. Do you have a carnivore story to tell? Connect with me on Instagram at meat, M-E-A-T, Mrs. M-R-S, Grubs, G-R-U-B-S. I would love to interview you, and the world needs to hear your story and how meat heals. Thanks so much for watching and all your support. Bye-bye till next time.